Reddit, what's the most ultimate petty revenge you've seen or been a part of? My neighbor's dog shits in our yard all of the time. It wouldn't be a big deal, except he never cleans up after her. I finally had enough, so I decided to go with a classic. I put a flaming bag of his dog's shit on his porch, rang the bell, and hid in the bushes. When he answered the door, I finally got my revenge by having an affair with his wife for the last 3.5 years. Well, that was unexpected. My little brother and his girlfriend came to stay at my house for the weekend, and the girlfriend was super self-centered and obnoxious. When they left, she forgot her clothes and toiletries because she left them sprawled all over my bathroom. About a week later, she and my brother moved into an apartment together. After he paid for the moving truck, deposit and utilities, she cheated on him with her ex and kicked him out of the apartment. This left him broke, homeless, and heartbroken. In the days after the breakup, she kept calling and emailing him several times per day, demanding that he ask me to ship her clothes and toiletries back to her. I mean, it's really important. It's my North Face. My brother called and pleaded with me to ship them to her so she would stop having a reason to contact him. Being the loving sister that I am, I gathered up the really important North Face sweatshirt, shorts, underwear, shampoo, conditioner, soap and razor. I folded everything nicely. I then wrote a nice note apologizing for taking so long to mail them to her, and let her know that I hope all is well. The note was written in permanent marker, and the paper happened to be resting on the really important North Face when I wrote it. Unfortunately, the ink bled straight through the paper and onto the shirt. Also unfortunately, the shampoo, soap and conditioner caps were not tightly secured on their bottles, and the contents leaked out all over the clothes, further spreading the ink. The most unfortunate result, though, was that her razor didn't have any sort of protective cap or container and left little slashes all over the front of the really important North Face. She received the package, and my brother never heard from her again. My downstairs neighbor at my old apartment was most likely a drug dealer. He didn't have a job, and cars would come by at all hours of the day or night, often honk loudly. He or his girlfriend would run out and chat with them for like 5 minutes and they'd leave. The drug slinging didn't bother me, but the honking at all hours did. It would wake my girlfriend and I up at all hours of the night. Frequently his clients and friends would be parked taking up 2 spaces when I came home from work, throwing off our already crowded parking scheme. His own vehicle was parked in such a way that if he had moved a few feet closer to the house we could have another spot, but his car didn't actually run, so he couldn't move it. He started dating a woman with like 3 kids, and when they were over they'd leave their bike and toys in the parking lot or in front of our steps so we'd have to dodge them in the morning. She had a small dog, and while she was usually good about cleaning up its poo piles, she would still miss them from time to time. It was all minor annoyances, so I decided to pay him back in the most petty way possible. Each floor paid for their own electricity. I knew our downstairs landing light was on his circuit, since it worked before we set up power to our apartment and didn't work for the few weeks between the previous tenant moving out and him moving in. It was an old incandescent bulb, not an energy efficient one like we had at the top of the stairs and throughout our apartment. After his friend took up 2 parking spaces for like 3 days when his truck died in our parking lot, I never turned that light off. It was probably costing him an extra 30 cents a month in electricity. Got him. When I was in 7th grade, the startup my dad was a part of was failing miserably in no small part due to a crazy CEO. While at his house, my dad observed the CEO's toddler daughter picking up a piece of dog shit and licking it. He picked her up and told her to give her dad a kiss. A horrible former co-worker always claimed she worked way more hours than she actually did, and when she was at work she just browsed Facebook all day. The doctor/owner was very hands-off and just let her do whatever she wanted, despite me going to him with proof, so I decided to take revenge. She was not computer savvy at all, so I removed Internet Explorer from her desktop and installed an identical icon that, when clicked, would instantly restart the computer. It was so satisfying when she would forget and click it, losing anything that she was working on. She would always grumble and complain about the virus on her computer. I started a new job about 3 weeks later, and when I left it was still giving her problems. I set a 10-minute song as the closing sound of a friend's computer, so it wouldn't shut down until the song finished. My mom and dad. This happened when I was in my late 20s. My mom and I were in the car. My dad called and they started bickering with each other. My mom got irritated and hung up on him. He called her right back, and when she answered he hung up on her. Didn't even say a word, just waited for her to pick and hung up. It was so petty and hilarious to see my parents acting like children. I couldn't stop laughing. They've been married over 35 years. I still get tickled when I think about that. I lived in a cheap crappy apartment with roommates and we all worked in fast food. Money was tight. One roommate ended up unemployed for a few weeks and then got a job as a bank teller, making much better money. However, while unemployed she had missed a rent payment, which we had scraped together to cover for her. 2 weeks into the new job she gets her first paycheck. Obviously we are expecting immediate payback. Day 1 she says something along the lines of she couldn't do personal business, cash her check, during work so she could pay us in a couple of days. The Friday she was supposed to pay us she comes home with a big shopping bag and casually mentioned she can't pay back rent yet because she had to buy new work clothes. When roommates and I got upset she went total bish on us that we didn't understand how to work a professional job because we were only food service, and basically told us we would get our money when she felt like it. That weekend, she misplaced her name tag required at work. She spent hours searching for it. At some point, I came across the name tag in a random spot and said nothing. She kept searching for it all weekend and was panicked that she would look bad to her boss, etc. I never moved or took the name tag, but the whole time I knew where it was. She never found it and had to get a new one. She also never paid the back rent and we kicked her out a few weeks later. I used to work shifts many years ago, including regular night shifts. My boss was an unpleasant person to say the least. He would leave his keys on top of his locker. One night, I took a small file to work and filed down 1 or 2 teeth of his front door key. The next day, he was telling everyone of how he got home and his door lock was broken and he had to get a locksmith out, which cost a fortune, and he didn't get much sleep. Happened again a couple of months later. Then his car key got some treatment. I stopped after that as I heard him mention it was getting suspicious that all these locks stopped working. But, unknown to me, other colleagues also disliked him. One night his locker disappeared entirely. Rumor has it that it's part of the foundations of an office block in London now. My roommate and her so loved doing elaborate jigsaw puzzles. After I found out she cancelled our lease, leaving me 1 week to find a new place to live, I threw away one piece of 2 different puzzles they were working on. Before you ask, she was able to do this because I was 17 and not able to legally sign a lease. Edit, I'm a she. Dad was on a boat, mom was, I don't know where that crazy girl was at. Everything turned out cool. I'm married and am a mom to an awesome little girl. I don't know why the adults in my life let things go down like that. Maybe cause we live in a certain southern state that rhymes with Alabama. My wife used to keep these little Godiva chocolates that she likes in her desk at work, but started noticing some of them missing and figured it must be someone from the overnight cleaning staff taking them. Fed up with losing her not inexpensive treats, she decided to get revenge on the choco thief in question by replacing the good chocolate with little squares of chocolate laxatives that look just like real candies. The next morning she saw several of the laxatives gone, and then from that day forward, she was never missing another one of her good chocolates ever again. Sounds a lot like the story I heard from a similar thread last week. Guy was tired of his roommate drinking his milk. So he put laxatives in the milk and the roommate had to go to the hospital because he was dehydrated. He just told the guy he must be allergic to milk. My sister said some pretty mean things to me in front of my friends when I was younger. So I put a slice of bologna in her Walkman CD player. I got the idea from Corey in the show That's So Raven. A girl on my softball team bullied me and spread rumors about me to the team and coaches. We were competing for the same position. She was in my geometry class and tried to buddy up to me because I was good at geometry and she wasn't. So for a while, I let her copy my homework. Then one day I gave her all the wrong answers and turned in the right answers for myself. I thought you were going to say you broke her arms. Boss paged me on my wedding night. Yeah, bad on me for leaving the pager on. But in my defense it automatically turned on after charging and I wanted to have a full battery before setting off on my honeymoon trip. He did it as a joke, but it came at an inappropriate moment. We had a page only if something's on fire policy, so I had to call in even though I had just gotten married and was about to go on 2 weeks vacation. When he answered, he laughed so hard I just had to do something about it. So when I got back, I programmed the mail servers to call out on their phone lines and hit his pager with dial back numbers for PhoneX services. At 4 AM. Every day. His wife got this pager before he did one time and saw a text message something like, "I loved how you described how you would FK me, Jerry. Call back when your wife's gone for the day." Wife was not amused. She thought he'd been calling PhoneX operators and tore him a new one. He knew it was me, but he was too stubborn to ask me to call it off. So it kept up for weeks until he finally figured out where the script was running from and used it to page me instead. We had a back and forth pager war for a while, but then it all ducked up when an actual data center emergency happened and one of us ignored the page thinking it was the other pranking him. That ended the fun. Later, not as sophisticated as most, but I started in a new job 2 years ago and hated a guy that kept joking about me, so I got his phone number and announced his PS4 for sale for like $50. Same day during lunch he was already nuts because of the calls. Of course he found a way to remove it, but it was nice to watch. I liked the guy who put flyers out announcing a Chewbacca sound-alike contest. People were supposed to call, not say anything, and go into their best Chewbacca roar. Early in a game of Civ 5, Alexander stole Petra from me at the last second, so I built a special city in the frozen wastes, blocked it in with my own cities, gifted it to him, then burned the rest of his empire to the ground. It took about 5 hours. I like to think he learned his lesson, but that forward settling duck still looks as smug as ever. I once had a 1,000-year war with France due to them settling on a road between two of my cities. The road was right up against some mountains and had water on the other sides, but that duck settled there anyway. He refused any offer I made for the city, and once the war started, every peace treaty involved him taking one of my cities and all my resources. Nuking him twice changed his mind in the end. During my freshman year of high school I was in a biology class that was made up of mainly juniors. This one guy, who sat next to me, would always be a jerk to me during class. I always did well on the tests, so he would always look over and copy the answers from my Scantron. I'm pretty sure he didn't realize that I knew he was cheating off of me. Well, one day I got fed up with this guy messing with me and cheating off of me. So the next test comes around and sure enough he starts copying my answers. I finish the test and so does he. He gets up and turns his test in and comes back to his seat. I looked him in the eyes and proceeded to erase my entire Scantron. I then retook the test, this time marking the correct answers. The look of panic in his eyes was so satisfying. He ended up making a 2% on that test and never cheated off me again. I was going to say, how is it possible to guess on a Scantron and get only 2%, but then realized you purposefully chose the wrong answers at a 98% accuracy. Damn, that's brutal.